Hello, hello, and
Oh,
welcome back to the episode of You Are the Masterpiece. And if this is the first time you are tuning into this podcast, welcome. And I just wanted to share a couple of words about this podcast. This podcast was created to just remind us that we do not have to be perfect as long as we are taking the effort. And we are the work in progress and masterpieces at the same time. And if this is the first time you are tuning in, my name is Irina Portnova, and I call myself Manifestation Star because I manifested great things in my life. And I'm here to teach you how to do it consciously. And I bring amazing guests all the time. And today, ta-da-da-da, I have amazing Lulu Agan. Lulu, thanks so much for joining. Like, even before coming live, we were having fun and said, okay, each time we come together, something magical happens. So, Lulu, just share a couple of words. What is something that you are doing in this world? And then we dive into the topic.
okay. Well, thank you, Irina, for having me on your show. It's such an honor, and I really loved your introduction. That was so cool. Oh my gosh, you're gonna have to show me how to do that. So, for those that don't know me, I'm Lulu, and I run a company called SwellWomen. And my mission in life is to inspire women to rock their bliss. Now, what does that mean? It's like just for women to really step into their truth, power, and purpose, and to live a life that is in alignment with their most ultimate desires. And in that is like a life that is peaceful, grounded, full of joy, and just connection and all that kind of fun stuff. So I do this through running retreats around the world, and I use modalities of surfing, yoga, women's empowerment, and healing modalities to really inspire women to walk away from their everyday lives, step into this, retreat experience, and then when they go home, they're feeling rest, rejuvenated, and reconnected to themselves. So,
That's so beautiful. I love what you're doing. It's so much fun. And
thank you.
yes, and today we have this incredible talk about the sacred pause inside the trigger. So let's dive in because I know you wanted to talk on that topic. So
Yeah,
let's just start the conversation.
perfect. You want me to lead it?
Yeah, just like
Okay.
start with what are the triggers. Let's just talk a little bit about what triggers are, just like because not everybody knows that. So I
Yeah.
love to always start from the mind of the beginner, because there
Okay.
are different people who come and tune into these episodes. So let's just first define what triggers are.
Okay, so this is really, really key. So throughout life, we are always, or not always, but we are frequently getting triggered. And what that means is, let's say, for example, you love to wash dishes, or the dishes are washed, and the most important thing about washing dishes is to squeeze out the sponge, right? So you tell all your family, your kids, your husband, if you're going to use this sponge, you got to squeeze it out. Okay. So the trigger comes in when all of a sudden I go up to the sink and I'm ready to wash the dishes and I see this wet, soggy sponge, somewhat moldy and stinky in the sink, right? And it's like, God darn it, they didn't squeeze out the sponge again. And so now I'm really upset. I'm really, really, really upset because someone, or the last person who used the sponge, did not squeeze the sponge. So this is a classic example, right? So with something very minor, or it might not even be minor, but something as simple as not squeezing out the sponge has triggered me into this response that I'm highly reactive, and I'm, experiencing some intense emotions, and then I'm pointing the finger to something, right? Something external is triggering me into what feels like a negative or an uncomfortable response. So the reason why I love to say like the sacred pause inside of a trigger is because the work that I've been doing for many years now is that triggers are actually shining light inside of us of what needs to be healed, what is not in resonance with our peace and groundedness, our joy, right? So when you look at from this perspective, as a trigger is shining light on what needs to be healed, the moment that you're triggered, you can take your power back and own it.
Mhm. I love that. And I love that fun example because, again, You know what I noticed the most is the triggers in the relationships, right?
Oh,
It's
yeah. Oh,
another
yeah.
great topic to say because, again, if the person is not aware and not conscious, they would say, okay, my partner triggers me, not realizing that that trigger is actually the mirror for them to look into what something has to be shifted in their behavior, in their thinking, or just like change something within, so they are not really charged up with that.
Exactly, and the thing that I just wanna highlight that was very beautifully said, Irina, and the thing that I wanna highlight is that we are in the habit of blaming others, thinking that there's something deeper in this. So, let's go back to the sponge thing, right? So, I'm really upset. Now, I'm not really upset about the sponge, right? What am I really upset about? So when you have this sacred pause, it's like, oh, okay, this trigger is, I'm not going to blame it anymore. I'm going to take my power back and I'm going to really look inside. What does it mean when someone doesn't squeeze the sponge? So in your case, what are some examples? Like what's coming to your mind, Arena, when I say, well, I'm upset, the sponge wasn't squeezed, but what's the real meaning behind it?
The real meaning that it's not my way, that I can't believe people do not listen to what I say.
Yep.
Mhm.
So what does that mean? People don't
That
listen
means
to me.
I'm not receiving the respect. That means I'm not heard, and that hurts.
And that sucks, right? It
Yes.
sucks. I'm not seen, I'm not important. So that simple example could be showing up as I'm not important, people don't respect me, I'm not loved, I'm not appreciated for the things that I do, right? So all of these things are really shining the light that's being shined is on the belief, which is the pause of the trigger. If you can take a moment to pause, take your power back and be like, okay, what's the most predominant emotion I'm feeling right now? Okay, I'm feeling really angry, right? Or I'm feeling really sad or frustrated or whatever it is, and I have to use a mood meter to like start becoming emotionally intelligent because for many years I suppress the emotions, right? If they're kind of uncomfortable, or if they're uncomfortable, then I've usually suppressed it. Or I will squeeze it. I'll squeeze the sponge, and I'll be like, internalizing how angry I am. And then someone will come and be like, "What's going on, mom? What's going on, Lou? What's going on?" And you'd be like, "Nothing." And that's the
Mhm.
kind of reaction, right? So that means I'm suppressing it in my body. I'm not honoring the emotion. So the sacred pause is this really amazing, simple steps to realize that, oh, I'm triggered right now. And this is not about my husband that didn't squeeze out the sponge or the kids that didn't squeeze out the sponge. This is about me. Okay, so what's the most predominant emotion I'm feeling right now? I'm feeling really frustrated. And then I give myself that 90 seconds to just feel frustrated, to feel the anger, to feel the sadness, to feel the disappointment, whatever it may be, right? I give it a 90-second, okay, where am I feeling it in my body? I slow down my breath. I just connect to my body. I figure out like where is it showing up? Oh, it's showing up in my right hip right now. Interesting. Or my left hip. Interesting. So I sit with it and I ask myself, do I need to express this emotion right now in some capacity? Like, do I want to just squeeze the sponge and shake it and be like, oh, I'm so sick of this, right? And just express the emotion. But then after that kind of 90-second exploration, they say scientifically that if you express the emotion for 90 seconds, it will change or it will just disappear. And then we can come in back into the space of what is this making me believe about myself? When that sponge isn't squeezed, what is it making me believe about myself? And that's where the power lies. That's where the sacred pause leads into something really, really important. Because if you believe that not squeezing the sponge means I'm not important, no one loves me, no one respects me, no one's listening to me, then we're stuck in a loop, in a pattern. And it's going to show up in many different ways, whether it's the sponge or someone takes a phone call in the middle of a very important conversation or they walk away, right? So think of some examples of trigger. Now you know what a trigger is. What are some triggers that are coming up in your life, Irina?
Well, yeah, like for the longest for me was, especially being the mom, right? And I
Yeah.
remember when my daughter was in the high school, And before I started to do this work, because again, once you do the inner work, once you coach, you start being more aware, right?
Exactly.
For me, it was more like control, right? I wanted to control everything, and I wanted to control the process. So for me, when she was not listening to me as a mom, I know what I'm saying to you. You do not understand. So you gotta listen to me. And that
Mhm.
obviously created the friction, right? And we were actually like almost, like fighting like cat fights, right? Because she's Leo, I'm Leo, and I'm like, you gotta respect me, I'm your mom, right? Until I started to do this work and kind of taking myself out from the situation and being the observer, not absorber, and saying to
Oh, I like
myself,
that. Good one.
yes, and saying to myself, you know what, I do not have to force something on her. I let her experience whatever she wants. If something is not going to show up, it's okay, like she's going to fall down and she's going to hurt herself. So it's her lesson. But
Yeah,
again, it takes the consciousness, it takes the awareness, and it takes some practice in order to start releasing that control and allowing everybody to navigate their own life.
absolutely. Yeah, and you can take this even deeper. I feel like triggers are kind of a nervous system response, right? So
Mhm,
we're getting triggered. That's having a kind of a fight, flight, freeze, or fawn reaction, right? And you're reacting. So you might react or whatever, or you might leave the room frustrated or whatever happens to be. And I think what's really important here is that there is something that happened in your life that made you feel like you had to be in control.
mhm,
So, what's a really, really wonderful exercise when you're working with triggers is ask yourself, what is this situation making me believe about? What is this situation making me believe about myself? So let's say I'm not important. No one listens to me. I'm not important, right? Then you can ask yourself, well, where has this happened before? And you can start tracing it back. And when you start tracing it back in time, you can get to the root cause. So sometimes that leads to, between the ages of like 3 and 7, that's where predominantly people are formulating their belief system. And this is a belief. I'm not important. It's a belief.
mhm,
And if
mhm,
it was formulated when you were young, it probably happened in some what I call like little t or big T sometime in your life when you were young, there was something that happened where one, you didn't finish the nervous system response, the you didn't finish the emotional allow yourself to express the emotion, so it got suppressed. And then in that, it made you believe that you are not important. And then this frequency is basically moving through time, through your whole timeline, and showing up in many different ways, whether it's in relationships, with friendships, with your family. It's constantly being triggered because it wants to be healed, because it's stealing. This trigger is stealing from your natural state of being, which we all like to think like it feels quite neutral. It feels quite, joyful, grounded, peaceful.
mhm,
So that is a really important step that I have found in my own journey and that now I coach, many people on is that we got to get to the root cause because it's not about the sponge right now. And it's not about that time when you were 18. And if you keep going back to identify, then that once you get to the root, you can start transmuting that. It's not only a belief, it's actually an energetic frequency that's keeping you in this pattern loop that's keeping you pretty much stuck because you can manifest like crazy and you can get the guy like I manifested my dream guy, and 9 months later what are we doing? We're breaking up because my frequency that's been hiding in the background yet driving this kind of fight or flight mode, mine is flight, I always run, is I'm not the one, I'm not lovable. So when I identified that I've been walking around for 50 years with
mhm,
this frequency, now you're like all of a sudden you bring great awareness into the patterning of your life. And now I understand like wow, if I've had that frequency in the background, even though I know that I'm lovable as an adult, there's a part of me, that little girl that hasn't healed yet. She hasn't been brought into my heart space to understand that I am lovable. So another really cool question is, reacting to the sponge example, is how old am I right now? How old am I right now in this reaction? And that usually will give you clues to take you to that root cause. Because if you're feeling like an 8-year-old, there's probably an 8-year-old that at some point something happened to make her believe that she wasn't important, or she wasn't lovable, or she wasn't the one.
I love what you're sharing. And again, right? I want to come back to what you said. We start thinking because we all live in our heads, right? And yes, and we all have our stories. And like talking about the example with the sponge, thinking that I'm not, nobody respects me, I'm not lovable. Again, it's our story, but it doesn't mean it's the truth, right? And I love to always go back and I actually ask people straight into their face. Like a lot of times we are living and overthinking, and me, I'm just a very direct person. I'm like, look, let's sit down. Let's get to the bottom of it. What's on your mind? And this is like such a great way to like really understand what other people are thinking. And again, I think it's another level not to take their thinking as the truth. Because
Yeah.
once you understand that nothing can trigger us if we understand that everything stems from ourselves. So once we are okay with anything what's going on around us, like right once we let that control go and say, hey, the only thing I can control is myself. I can't
Yep.
control the way I'm thinking. I can't control the way I'm acting, how I'm behaving, like my emotional state. That's the only thing I have control of. Everything else I don't. And a lot
Yeah.
of times people are just literally involving their lives and their energy to prove something to others, to
Hmm.
actually show something to others. And the best thing to do is just take your energy back to yourself and focus on you, because I'm not here to gift my energy to anybody, but to use it for my own wellness.
Yeah. I mean, that's freedom right there. When you can rise above the trigger and know that this is just past patterning, or this old belief that you're trying to transmute, just bring yourself back to the true essence of who you are, which basically everyone is just, love. You think about a little baby,
Mhm.
you have kids, you think about a little baby when they're born in the world. It's like they're so innocent and pure, and they need connection, and they're just a bundle of bliss. I call them bliss babies, right?
Mhm.
But somehow life along the way just took us away, more and more away from that truth. And so this, the taking back your power is really, really essential, knowing that it doesn't excuse bad behavior from other people, right? Shitty things are happening in the world all the time. There's
Right.
bad, not pleasant experiences that are happening all the time. But we take back our power knowing that it really wasn't our fault a lot of the times of what's happening. It's just the outcome of someone else being in their pain body.
Yes, totally. I love that. So, Lulu, tell a little bit about the tools. What are great tools? Like you started to say, like go back and start identifying, like where we feel it in our body and
Yeah.
what is the first memory of that. What is something like how can we shift ourselves or remind ourselves in the moment, right? Because it all boils down to having us at peace, meaning, like having our nervous system regulated, right?
Hmm.
So we are not like actually charged up with something, like very little that doesn't even, like require our attention. How do we bring that focus back to ourselves?
Yeah, I think the process that I use is that, first of all, as fast as possible, I notice that I'm triggered. I'm like, oh my God. And maybe like even with Steve, my beloved partner, he'll be like, oh, because we do this same kind of work together because we're trying to grow and expand within the relationship. And he's like, oh, after 15 minutes of ranting about something, he'll go, oh, you're triggered right now. And I'll pause. And I'll be like, "Oh my god." And now we can even laugh about it. It's like, "Oh my god, I'm triggered. This is not about X. This is about me." And so
Mhm.
I can that is the first step is just notice that you're triggered. And the second step is to take it back and know that this is about you and it really has nothing to do with what's actually happening. Now, granted, there might be something that's happening that's not pleasant, but if it has this big kind of response, then you know that it's a trigger and it's definitely linked to something that you believe is making you believe something about yourself. This is rooted and definitely rooted in the past. So when we pause, but the most important thing I have to say in the process is do not bypass your emotions. You must honor the emotions that you're coming up because even if this is linked to something that is in the past, so let's say me growing up, with my father, it was a father relationship. There it wasn't very clear that he loved me. In fact, I spent a lot of my life trying to prove things that I was lovable, right? But
Mhm.
he just wasn't he was in his pain body. So again, he's doing the best he can, but he's in his pain body and it's quite clear that he does not love me. So what I'm saying is it's important to process the emotion in that time because actually you're probably processing the emotion from something in the past, right? So if I
Mhm.
spent my whole life trying to prove to my dad that I was lovable and I still didn't win the game, right? Then in the moment when I'm like with Steve and I don't know, we're breaking up, it's and I'm saying like this whatever is happening right now, I'm not lovable, then I need to express that grief, that anger, that frustration, whatever those emotions that are coming up, I need to honor them because if we keep suppressing then it's just going to be an explosion again down the lane. So it's becoming emotionally intelligent. It's also regulating your nervous system. The reason why, Irina, that you can now relinquish control is because you feel safe
Yep.
and you have to feel safe. And safety, again, it's an internal game. It's not someone else creating safety. It's you connecting with your breath, taking that pause, slowing things down enough to be able to process the trigger, honor the emotions, which is really, really important. And again, only takes 90 seconds. So if I can honor emotion and give it expression, feel it in my body, notice if it has a texture or a color, does it want to express itself through sound or shaking or whatever it is, right? It's like just take 90 seconds, give it full expression as if you were on stage and you were acting out an emotion. Then you can come to the place like, wow, okay, this experience is making me believe X about myself, which now you're bringing awareness. Awareness is key. When you have awareness, you then can do what you're doing, Irina, which is basically bring yourself to neutrality, step away and be like, oh, wait, this belief is no longer valid because I know that I'm lovable. I know that I'm the one. And I've regulated my nervous system. So then I can be like, really, this is about the other person or the sponge. That's not really that important, right? Like the
Mhm.
squeezing of the sponge. It's like the squeezing of the sponge, yes, it's someone being maybe lazy or whatever, and it doesn't excuse their behavior, but it does not mean that they don't love you. It doesn't mean that they don't think you're important. And it sure and hell doesn't mean, right? It doesn't mean these things.
You know what? It's interesting because you are sharing that story, and I remember my daughter and my son brought these, like squashes. I think they call them these,
The
like
squishy balls?
squashy, right? So
Yeah, the
basically,
squishy
just
ball.
so each time, like they get triggered or nervous, they just, like squashing them. And like when you were sharing the story about sponge, I was like, well, the way I would approach, I'm like, okay, that's another way of me to regulate my nervous system. Let me just, like squeeze it, right? Again,
Yeah.
it's all in our perception, and that's how
Mhm.
we actually can see a different outcome of any given situation, right? It's all
Yeah.
about how do we want to look at this situation. If we want to be charged up and continue the same reactions all over again and again and again, of course we can do that. But if we say, you know what, enough is enough, I don't want to feel this way, I don't want to feel raged, I don't want to feel frustrated, I just want to be in peace. So all
Yeah.
it takes is to choose a different thought. And once we choose different thought, we are completely experiencing a different emotion and reality.
Yeah, I agree. I think you have to do both. I think you choose a new thought and then you connect to the body. How does it feel not to really give a crap about the sponge? Because
Yep.
again, it's a control thing, right? It's like, is
Mhm.
the sponge that important? No. So you have to change the thought, and that thought energetically will calm the nervous system. You get back into the body, and then you're going to feel something different.
Yes, I love it. I love it. So, what would be great tips that you want to have the audience? Because again, we are like on the brink of
I know.
2025, and like
2020. Oh, yeah.
something. Yeah. So like we always, like it's great to have some plan for the future, right? And it's
Mhm.
great when we are stepping into the new year with some new ideas, with some new habits, with something that we want to explore and discover. So, what is something you would love to share with the audience, like to step into 2026?
I mean, if you can pause, take that sacred pause when you're triggered and follow the process that was just explained. I think that's going to I mean, I just think that life is so much sweeter and there's so much freedom when you are not being triggered all the time. So the first invite is just to notice, like in your daily life, how many times are you triggered? And how many times are you blaming the external world for this trigger? And how many times are you um, feeling, these strong emotions that aren't really about the trigger? Right? So it's the invitation to become super aware and know that you can take that power back. You can stop blaming the external world, the external environment, your family, your friends, etc. And you can just take it back and start just move through that process, honoring your emotions and connecting it to a belief, and then transmute the belief through a thought, but also drop down in the body so that your nervous system is regulated, that you feel safe. I also say, there's a part of forgiveness because for me, it's like no one ever taught me to forgive myself for believing that could ever be true. And so when I say I forgive myself for believing that I'm not important, I know that that's can't possibly true because in my most natural state, I am love, right? Or I am peace. Then you're calming everything down and you're transmuting it over and over and again. And I know that in the beginning it can be quite daunting because if you think about it, um people that are in triggers, which I feel like, my entire life I was like triggered multiple times a day. And it's really funny because I read this book called Choose Again 6 Steps to Freedom, which is pretty much this a modified version of that process. Um the guy that wrote the book said he was triggered like 100 times a day, and then doing this process, he over time, maybe in a year, after a year of doing it, he was like, wow, I was only triggered like twice today. So that's progress. That's so I would say moving into 2026, the biggest gift that you can give yourself is freedom from
Mhm.
the triggers, because really a trigger is only shining light on what needs to be healed inside of you. And it might not be that adult version that's reacting to a certain situation, that it is some sort of childhood trauma, little t, big T. It could be something really small or big that is really impacting your decisions and how you show up in your life. It could be preventing you from doing something that's really, really important to you, but you might be really afraid. And I believe that there's only two things in standing in the way of the life that you really want to create. Fear, and mostly in this lifetime, it's false evidence appearing real, and triggers. I mean, belief systems. And the triggers are what's shining light on what needs to be healed, which is the belief.
I love that. So, very powerful conversation. And for everybody who tune in, if you feel that this was helpful, just, comment something below and also connect with Lulu, connect with me, and also share that
Yeah.
episode because I'm sure that would be helpful for so many people. And it's a great way to step into the new year with new thoughts, with new resolutions, and with new behaviors, right? And again, we are the ones to choose the way we feel, to choose the way we show up in this life. And let's not just give that power away to any triggers, to any negative thinking, but just like really connect with ourselves. Once we understand ourselves, we can actually navigate that life with more grace and ease and enjoy it to the fullest. Thank you so much, Lulu. That was so
Oh, thank you,
enlightening.
Irina. Thank you. I'm
Yes,
sorry about
as
the light. The sun is just beaming on me. I don't even know if you can see me in the
well,
video,
you
but
you are
whatever.
just you are just the sunshine. That's why.
Yeah, I'm just a beam of a
Yes,
ray of sunshine.
a ray of
Thank you,
sunshine.
Irina.
Here we go. Yes, thank you so much, love. And for
Thank
everybody,
you.
happy New Year.
Yeah,
May
happy
all
New
your
Year.
dreams come true because they can if you really focus your mind and manifest miracles because they are always here in our life. All right, all the
Aho.
best and see you on the next
Bye.